The digital media landscape doesn't need more walls. It needs clarity, unlimited intelligence across competitors, audiences, inventory, and data, all in one place. Ask it anything and uncover the drivers behind performance. Path to conversion reporting, media mix modeling, intelligence that adapts in real time with clear revenue impact. Elevate your intelligence platform.
Hey everyone, I'm David Berkowitz, back for another edition of AI Insiders with AI Marketers Guild, part of the Marketecture media family, and always excited by my guests, but you know, just as someone who loves building stuff and trying to make sense of AI tools and figure out like how to use all this stuff better. Krish and I got connected and we've been geeking out on some things for a while, and I just love those conversations that very organically lead to like, well, let's share this with the broader audience. Let's and let's get you in front of some people who ask tougher questions than I do, because these are community conversations after all. So, Krish, welcome.
Thank you, David. I was watching. This is an old story. I was watching over COVID. I was pretending like I was traveling and watching Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown, and I visited from my couch a lot of places like Milwaukee in Wisconsin, in like the middle of America. That I was like, oh my god, I need to do a food tour. Seriously. So I love that. I love to hear about. I think New Orleans was there. I think somewhere in Texas was there. I have a list somewhere, but yeah,
What is great about one of the things great about this country now is that I feel like in the past like 10 years or so, even any city that like wasn't a food city, you know, it's like it is now, right? Everywhere you go, there's just stuff to surprise you, and that'll be like the best thing you've ever eaten. So.
Absolutely. And look, I live in New York now, so I'm in London currently, calling in from London. But yeah, I live in New York, so hopefully I get the chance to tour around a bit.
Well, so what are you up to on your AI tours now?
So look, I mean, I've kind of gone deep into the rabbit hole to the point where I'm one of those guys whose fiance calls them at midnight and tells them to get to bed because I'm still on Claude. And I'm like, all right, well, just one more commit, one more push. And it sort of, you know, I moved to New York about a year and a half ago. I've been in, just for reference anyway, I've been in the marketing and advertising space for, you know, not 20 years, just under, always commercializing data and automation in broadcast for all, you know, Microsoft or telco or all these sorts of things. So I kind of had this innate curiosity for what you could do with what I like to sort of think of as ingredients as opposed to products. And vibe coding is definitely for me like an ingredient. It's very much you feel like a chef. You feel like you're in the kitchen whipping up something, and you don't know quite yet where it's going to go. And look, I got deep into the rabbit hole to a point where I started to sort of go, like, I think that there's, you know, obviously there's a lot of exciting stuff about building, but I think there's a lot of existential, scary stuff as well in the mix, which is, can we learn this stuff, you know, at a fast enough pace? Do we apply it in the right areas for ourselves and for our businesses? Because I think that vibe coding, for example, is, I thought we talked about this, David. We're like, it's all of a sudden all these dormant ideas that you've had and you've sat on and you've kind of written down in a scratch pad somewhere. All of a sudden, you know, you're like, oh, actually, I can actually make this now. I can turn my imagination into something. And like you've sort of, you posted your link, the link there, and you found that people are actually using it. That's the new testing ground, isn't it? It's not just saying your ideas to someone. It's, hey, test my app. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's it's a big mind shift, and for you know, for me, it was that evolution of can I do essentially better landing pages, or can I create landing pages for things I never would have before? Like if I'm giving a talk somewhere, or even giving a pitch, like, it might be like a password protected one. And can I just put the documentation up there? Can I put like a few of these resources and links that I might have in other spots? And just like, instead of maybe that list of links you have as the last slide of your presentation or things like that, or even places where you get your information, can you leave that for them? And then it was that like evolution as far as like how you actually build something that functions and does things. And
That's it. And I kind of look at that, what you just said there. I'm like, it feels like PDFs are definitely gone. I'm sorry, but they need to go away. I think that in general, decks and the way we present information in 2 years' time, I can't see it being very similar to what we're used to now at work, especially and vibe coding it's probably the most tangible example of that right now, where, like you said, instead of sending someone a PDF or something, I'm already, sending since a year and a half, live artifacts and dashboards. And, if I for one of my customers, I was talking to them about this sort of wide reaching enterprise deal for data infrastructure that would sort of, look through all of their domains. And instead of just sending them a deck, I sent them a vibe coded simulator based on the rough numbers of their properties, of what would happen if they incorporated this, so they can model out everything that would, or should happen, without me even sitting there, or without me answering that question. These enterprise deals, they sometimes take 6 months, not because the business takes 6 months, just because for the person that you're selling to imagine all that stuff, it's a lot. There's a lot of, I sell to you, you sell to the other person. With a vibe coded tool, they were just showing their internal stuff, what I had built, and playing with it. And I was like, this isn't like a set, like I've not gamed this to like sell the dream to you. It's just the math of, the situation combined with a few toggles that allow you to see what's going to come out of, a potential solution. So that was a really, sorry, go on.
Well, so I'm curious, like, how much of the stuff you're building is for like your workflows and like, client needs, and how much stuff are you like hoping other folks use?
Okay, so there's definitely bits of both, and what I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of is a bit of AI inception here, which is I operate an AI advisory solution, or a firm which helps executive leaders to do 4-week or 90-day builder sprints. So they come to me with an I don't know where to get started. I've not got much time. I've got an executive problem I actually need to twin my decision making with, as opposed to, joining a vibe coding cohort. And so I kind of pair it with what their decision problem is. And there are some customers for whom one of them is a small business and they wanted a website. They're paying 10K for that. I just included it for free. In this is vibe coding allows you to do that. They receive a much better website than a web designer would have given them 2 years ago for 10 grand. In like a day, not even joking. It's like and with a set of smart questions to that customer, they provide their color palette. And this is almost like me doing it just on the side and then providing it to them, going like, what do you think? Bit of a mock-up. And they go, that's actually embarrassingly good compared to what I've been talking to this web designer about for 6 months. And then every time I want a word changed on the website, I've got to like have a meeting, and it's like, and so that for me is not even the product. It's just like, yeah, go on then. Like it take me 20 minutes. And I'm not saying I built like the most amazing website on the planet. However, the 0 to 1 journey, Jesus, that's so,
I mean, is there anything you even want to share for like, just that we should check out, or
In terms of what I've been building,
yeah.
I've been building a lot of different things that I can show. So one of them that I'll show you is my my business is called MindMaker, and um, it comes with what I could have termed a memory web, which is, and this is just like after working with a bunch of people. It's a funny story. This was when there's about two months ago, ChatGPT got in. They had like a series of weird press releases, right? It was within the space of a week. They were like doing adult bots, and then sponsored war, and then they announced their advertising plans, and it was like, yeah, everyone kind of got a bit salty at ChatGPT, and a lot of my customers were like, I'm moving to Claude. I'm gonna download all my memories, and I was like, good luck with that. That you know that LLMs hallucinate, right? You've spent all your time pouring all your mind and energy into ChatGPT, and what you're going to get out is not great, and it's not reliable, and it's not data driven, and it's not yours. Similar, so it's the next walled garden essentially, right? The ChatGPTs of the world. So if you punch accept, it hallucinates. And so when these people were trying to download their memories out of ChatGPT, they started to get pretty pissed off. So so this is the app that I basically built as a companion to my advisory platform, and it's the first app I built that it started off vibe coded, but then it mutated into very much coded and with a full on database and automations behind it, and more or less a full on production app. So I'll see if I can share my screen. Can you see this here?
Now I say, ooh.
Yeah. So
I feel like I'm watching Project Hail Mary right now. So
yeah.
Okay.
So this is just my profile. It's got it sort of contains everything I've loaded in my stream of consciousness. I just sort of voice note it every day and talk about the issues that I'm having. And then it will build, it'll build my edge. It'll identify where I'm not so strong as a leader or as a person. Because one of the beliefs or the things that I really think about a lot is that we should all be using AI to amplify our strengths, but also like close our gaps, right? If you're not a good writer, focus on using AI for writing. If you're not a good numbers person, do you know what I mean? Like there's always MindMaker is named MindMaker for a reason. It's that I think that we can take control of this and we can make ourselves better, as opposed to just asking it questions and feeding it data. So the UI started all vibe coded, and then from there I built backwards all of the hardened data sets and all of the privacy flows. You can voice a recurring pain. This works a little bit better on mobile, but I can't share that. And then I'm just piloting a briefing feature, which is if you're overwhelmed with AI news or news that you feel like you should know but isn't actually helping you make decisions, then you can just generate a quick podcast that it will just pop up in about 2 minutes, and it will be all the headlines that are anchored to what you actually need to know as a leader and why. Based on what you've selected. Is it what problem you're having? Is it build versus buy? Is it you don't know what vendor to believe in, or is it that you don't know what pricing model to go with anymore? Or there's loads of different problems that a leader might be having, and they can all surface in this. But the goal I had with this was mobile first, voice first, because I sort of predict or just thought that would be a good place to start, rather than try and build something that was based on like older UX standards.
And with voice, just getting into there, like, is this all like 11 Labs, or what are you, or like how are you incorporating voice?
Yeah, so 11 Labs is um, a really good API if you want to generate voices.
Mhm.
OpenAI Whisper is a really good model if you want to transcribe. But even when you want to transcribe, there are pre and post gates that you kind of manually want to put around it. So that's kind of where when you vibe code something into existence, it will create the bare bones simplest version of it, usually the front end version of it,
Mhm.
which looks good, and then you need to figure out how to get it to do stuff. Right? That's the more, I guess, frustrating, or that's the bit where you're up till midnight pissing your fiance off because you're trying to make the thing actually do what you want it. With voice, for example, it's not just about transcribing, it's about once the voice comes in, like how do you treat that, how do you curate that, what do you filter out. So all those rules you can also vibe code into the app, and then post processing you can also do as well. So you can like filter out all the noise. So it's not just about the model or having the API key for OpenAI. It's about what the guardrails you set up prior to the data coming in, and what do you do after the data is collected, and between when it's collected and when you show it in your UI. And that, I think, is where that's a really big way to level up your vibe coding from uh, you know talking it into its initial existence, I think.
So, and then, and can you share a little bit more about your like just because sometimes, especially folks that are developing, yeah, I want to make sure we're translating, for marketers.
Yeah.
Like you talk about these different gates and all that. Like what does that mean in practice?
It The best way I would draw a parallel. See, I come from the marketing space as well, and I'd see it as like the vibe coding bit is like the planning, activation, measurement cycle. It's almost like that, but for vibe coding. Your like vibe coding is your activation, but you still need to plan. You need to have verification gates to how the user uses your tool
Mhm.
first, and then you need to verify that how the user uses it afterwards um, is good. So it's rules. It's just rules at the start, rules at the end that
Mhm.
don't allow your vibe coded tool to just go off piste and show anything to anyone. There was a good example of there was a funny example of the McDonald's chatbot giving people coding advice when and people were asking it like really complicated Python questions instead of ordering a burger, and it was giving all this coding advice to people. And that was like just a slapstick moment where obviously those gates just haven't been put in, and all of a sudden, and it was never the LLM that was connected into the chatbot was never told to not answer those questions.
Mm.
So that's a really good silly example of a gate.
How helpful do you find it as far as like, when you have like vibe coding platforms checking your own work or trying to suggest what's missing, right? Because like some of this is once you actually release something to the wild, then so someone actually DM me about this on findable .com thing that it, that the resume upload wasn't working on Safari and but it was fine on Chrome, right? Like I'm not spending weeks testing this stuff. I actually literally
Yeah.
started this project less than 48 hours ago. So it's like once you actually put it out there, then you can let initial users do that testing for you.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, usually there's a little bit more of a build period, but like how good are like the vibe coding apps at checking your blind spots, and how do you try to prevent some of the stuff before like you might have an audience of one, right? Like one client you want to get something in front of, and you also would probably rather not embarrass yourself too much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And the way I look at this is I try to think about the types of roles
Mm,
that would be in the team that built that app 10 years ago.
mhm,
And so in order to build that app 10 years ago, there would be an engineer, there would be a QA developer, there would be a product manager, there would be there'd be all these people working on that app to bring it to life. There would be a UI, a web designer, there would be probably a mobile specific person. And
mhm,
so where I'm going with this is a really important part of what you do orchestrating vibe coding tools is let it get into the right mode and let it assume the right role and responsibility for what it's doing. You would never ask a web designer to do back-end dev work. You would never ask a salesperson to do product work in that way in
mhm,
your in 10 years ago. And so if you're having a problem, like you said just there, the email, the issue that you just raised, um, that's a very specific type of issue that you would hand off to one of those people in the team. You wouldn't just tell the whole team go fix that problem. Someone would be on the hook for that. And so, in the
mhm,
same way, if you're trying to solve these specific types of problems, it helps to have a good eye for what actual type of problem is it. Like, is it a user experience issue? Is it a workflow issue? Is it a technical, an API integration issue? And this is where most vibe coders don't stay up till midnight. They stay up till 6 a.m. because they don't ask those questions first up, and they just say still doesn't work. Enter, and Lovable or your vibe coding tool will come back and go, "Hey, I fixed it," and it hasn't fixed it because it's not the right role. It's not the the job description of you didn't give it the skills, you didn't give it the job description. And that's part number two to answer your question. Don't just assume, don't just say act like a world-class developer, but
mhm,
actually install the skills required to make your blind spots visible, which is I'm not I used to code, but I'm not, no, by no means am I a back-end developer. And I installed all these Claude code skills not for the purpose of trying to palm off the actual decision making, but when I do identify what's wrong, the Claude code skill for backend engineering is going to pick up. It's going to have workflows. It's going to have It's going to have logic inside the skill that
mhm.
you would never pick up. You would never instruct the vibe coding tool to do because
Right.
you can't unless you've done every role in the world in your life. You'll never be able to do that. So that's kind of the second part is don't just don't just say act like a developer, but actually give it the skills to do that. And then from there on, you're probably and then the third layer to that is once you've had a bunch of failures, I sit there every Sunday for 3 hours and I log the failures and write them into the skills again. So it's almost like a self-learning loop that next week I should never have the same issues I had last week.
Mhm.
Uh, so if you combine those three layers, I think over the course of maybe 2 or 3 months, you're going to be accelerating pretty hard by if you do those three things by the end of like month two.
With the failure logging and all that, are there certain kinds of things that from your learning process now you can start avoiding yourself and let you think are like common causes of things not working?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I like it's all well and good to talk like this as if I, have never made a mistake. But I tell you what, like the amount of frustration and pain. Like I'm a patient person,
Mhm.
but vibe coding has tested the shit out of that patience over the last sort of 4 months, especially in those early days where you don't, you haven't done the thing enough to build up your own pattern recognition. And so this is like, this is more of a systems thinking exercise, which is if you didn't already, then you should get better at observing the reasons for things happening and inquire about, why, even with your vibe coding, to actually get a full failure report so you can understand um, once the thing's fixed, what actually trace your steps back and what happened. One of the
Mhm.
examples for that is for me a really one that I was like afterwards I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I spent like 30 hours of my life
Mm.
on that problem. And it's just simple design architecture. It's the early days. Vibe coding tools are getting better now. They have more persistent memory, like all AI tools are getting. But in those early days, one conversation genuinely was one conversation. And when you're talking to ChatGPT about, how to make a burger, you don't have high standards for that conversation, or, you're like, oh, I'm pretty happy I got a burger. Whereas when you're trying to do work, it starts to really irritate you when the next time you come back, you have to go again, and you have to run into the same problem and encounter it. And so what ends up happening when you do all those separate sessions and your vibe coding is that it doesn't often look at what's there. It just builds.
Mm-hmm.
It goes and excitedly builds, right? And that is, and I when I run cohorts, I sort of try and stress the fact that you're going to have to get used to boring work if you want to work with AI properly.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to actually do good work with AI, it isn't rainbows and unicorns. It's systems thinking, attention to detail. It's taxonomies, naming conventions. It's feedback loops. It's you have to sit there and do this stuff. It's like and that way when you don't get the design architecture problems. An interesting one where it'll just create. And I'm not a design expert, but there's CSS, there's Tailwind. Those are the two big ones, and it will create a totally different design architecture on top of the one that the previous session created. And then when you want to move just a simple box left to right, I'm sure if you guys have done this, vibe coded a bit, you'll have this issue. You'll have had this issue where you're like, why the hell can you not move this blue box from there to there? And it's not because the prompt wasn't right. It's because there are two conflicting systems. And the third session you ran to move that blue box didn't even acknowledge the two systems. It just tried to fix blindly.
So, I mean, what you're saying is fascinating. And I feel like we don't necessarily have enough of these honest conversations. Yeah. And because, like, I mean, you're like you were doing biz dev at Captify, right? Like, how the heck did you learn that even all of these different disciplines exist that you're talking about? It's like, like, let alone, how did you learn each of these kinds of areas, or at least enough to be functional, right? Like that seems like a lot, and I'd imagine someone in the room or listening to this after might find this fairly daunting.
Yeah, I mean, look, I came from an automation background in my first job at Microsoft, and my studies were in computing and linguistics when I was younger. So I kind of always had that knack for pulling things apart and piecing them back together again. And by the way, like what I'm saying it's only daunting if you don't have high standards. And what I mean by that is these are not coding problems that I'm saying, or coding disciplines. They're attention to detail, systems thinking. If you're a senior leader doing a good job where you're working, you probably already do these things. And if you've got high standards, you probably implement a lot of the things that are needed for vibe coding just by being curious, just by not letting your standards drop. And that's kind of where, that's kind of where the awe and magic of it can pull you away from having high standards, because it creates something you didn't expect, and you trust the thing to the lovable or whatever to create, and you forget in that moment that you're the boss here. That's not good enough. You've got to improve on X, Y, and Z. So I don't think it may sound daunting, but honestly, David, it's like for me, it's more just like, do you accept that, or do you go, no, actually we can push this a bit further? And AI is the best thing at being pushed, and it's the worst thing at just being asked. Because if you if you just ask with low standards, you'll get the low standards. Whereas if you push and push and push and push and push, you do tend to get good results.
Well, and one of my favorite things right now is asking, well, like the AI app you're using, like what else should I be doing? Like how can we
That's a
make it
good one.
better? And often it'll give a list of like 20 things, and you could start seeing what to prioritize, what not. Even one of my favorite things I've built so far is this site called We've Got Receipts, and it's like tracking journalists and influencers' predictions, and with more focus on marketing right now. That came up actually while I was at the Possible conference, and I was back in the hotel room trying to get a few things ready for stuff I was doing with Marketecture, and then of course I wind up vibe coding, and I built a bunch of things, and so I asked the kind of like, central brain that I was using. I'm like, okay, you know a lot of my stuff by now. You know the things I'm into. You know, like a lot of my goals. What should I do next? And that one came up, and I'm like, this is brilliant, right? Like it's just like SEO, GEO bait. It's not even like a monetization play. I'm like, I love this, and it's fun because there are probably people in this room who are on there and don't even know they are yet. So
they're in, and I'd actually build on that, David, and say, like, if you know what you don't want and pair it with what you just said, which is show me some ideas based on what you know and the North Star outcome I'm trying to achieve, you'll end up with pathways in front of you that you may not, and probably definitely would not have thought of yourself. And actually, that's one of my favorite things to do sometimes if I'm building a hobby app or something like that. I give what I don't want, I give the North Star. I actually don't even check on the plan. I just build. And I just love that process because it's kind of mind bending, and it's more just fun to go somewhere that you wouldn't have gone,
Yeah, well, and that, like, what don't you want is pretty key too. Like if you're trying to build marketing tools and things like that, like one thing I've found that comes up a lot is like, why don't you build a proposal writer? And I'm like, there's like, everyone's built that. Yeah, there's just and it's so easy for most, like, not that tech savvy users to say, like, here's a proposal I sent. Now, can you help me create a new one based on these meeting notes? It's like, so it's just, what are the things that are really overplayed or like someone else has already done better? And granted, if you're then, like if say you've got some sales tools that you want to like build in, and like some like LinkedIn app or something where a proposal writer is just like one step that helps you get towards some end goal, then maybe it's a nice little feature in something else. But it's just, it's like trying to know what your market is and what's like just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, a good way of the pre-work that you can do for that one, I mean, unless you're going to monetize that proposal generator, is to create your proposal generator. 'Cause everyone does that task quite a little bit differently. And if you spent, say, half a day prior collating all your previous work or your previous proposals and documenting your workflows, and then maybe running a ChatGPT or Claude session prior, just saying, observe the patterns, observe the workflows behind this, and then pull that all into a brief. Then all of a sudden you're automating your own problems away, as opposed to creating an app that maybe is generic. Is anyone experimenting with vibe coding tools?
There definitely are in this room. Yeah.
There's some stories.
I'm doing cloud code, so
Nice.
not vibe coding, and it's extremely powerful. I'm blown away by how powerful it is.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you use the app, or do you use the terminal?
I use a terminal.
Oh yeah, okay. You're unleashing it fully then.
Yeah, and I bought this harness, which is a memory system, and it seems to work extremely well. I just finished and shipped a new feature integrating Curator with Notebook LM. So you're able to curate your research inside of my plugin extension and then sync that with Notebook LM. I don't know if you guys use any tools. There's a lot of tools out there like Extend LM where you can directly add sources to Notebook LM. I think what I do is a little bit easier and more powerful.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, the amount of people I have met that have never heard of Notebook LM is alarming. It's one of the most under-hyped tools, I think, out there.
Yeah, and especially for something like this. I mean, when I started a new contract role a couple months ago, like the single best thing I did that I'd never had to do before was starting a Notebook LM. And fortunately, they're a Gemini company, among other things like Claude. But I started like a corporate Notebook LM instance, and I really like I have like a couple that are more just like kitchen sink ones, but then some that are very specific to certain projects, certain teams, and things like that. And like having that set up early so that you could keep just adding other documents to it and keep like this stuff gets so much more useful over time, and building that kind of organization for later, like you might not need it now. Most of the things about the things you're actively working on now. You won't necessarily know a month or 6 months from now what things you've needed, what you forgot even exists, what someone sent you in an email or on Slack. Like that's where I think Notebook LM becomes so useful. It's like, oh, I go right there. I've got my notebook, this project now. Like I was working on this thing a year ago, and now it's time for an update. I have it all there.
For you, David, for you. Oh, sorry. Come.
Yeah, what would be critical in that is to keep, like every time you see a source that you think relates to some project, to curate that right away and add it. And as you said, over time, you may not remember it, but Notebook LM will remember it for you, and you can always use it to do your work.
Mm. And imagine in a couple of years' time when you've got all those dots and you want to connect them and produce something that only David could produce. It'd be pretty powerful, I think.
So how many are you using Claude for a similar functionality of Notebook LM? Like, are you adding sources and asking Claude for the same, or have you not tried that?
Not for me, not no. I use Claude Code Cursor for vibe coding in particular. I use Claude Code Cursor. I have my own OpenClaw setup, which I use as the brain to just orchestrate lots of different places that I find inspiration. And then if it's whether sometimes I screen grab a lot on my phone if I'm looking at things, and so then I have that sort of put in a Google folder, and then OpenClaw brings that and turns it into knowledge. But I don't put that in Notebook LM currently. But actually,
OpenClaw is part of Claude. Is that the same? I don't.
No, it's just an open source code that is more of an orchestration engine for all of the LLMs and APIs and lots of everything that you want. So yeah, I use that because I just have like I try to run sort of more autonomous agents that for different purposes in my business, and I just thought that was the most elegant setup. But Notebook LM is probably if I was to build it out, I'd probably start using Notebook LM if I wanted to sort of have more heavyweight sort of research and content curation.
Yeah, I just built an app for Claude that does the same thing. So I can sync my folders with Notebook LM, but I can also pull it into Claude, and Claude has all of the same features.
Yeah.
It creates mind maps and tag clouds, and you can chat with sources and do all of that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the fun part of playing with all this stuff is there are a million ways to get the same out, not the same, but there are a million ways to sort of put all the puzzle pieces together, which is part of the fun, right?
Mm. Yeah, but Cloud Code, definitely, I don't need developers. All the stuff that I wanted to do and I had to pay for, I don't have to do that anymore, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
And Krish, like, did you look at other options? Like, have you played with Codex or other things like that and tried to see, like, where you want to be spending your time?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got all of them. My OpenClaw sits on a model router, which, if I want it to, can sort of pick the model based on the task in the chat. So DeepSeek or Claude, and I actually noticed the problem with Claude Code, if you're using not Claude, if you're not using the Claude tool, is that it's gotten really expensive. Claude Opus is already 10 times pricier than other models, but if you use it through an API, it's really, really, really pricey. And so the unit economics, once you start doing lots of things at scale, these things are, I've been sort of trying to compare what kind of output I get for what kind of cost across all the models. And right now, DeepSeek is actually the most price efficient in terms of how big the context window is and how smart its reasoning is. It isn't quite as good as Opus 4.7, but it certainly isn't 30 times worse for 30 times less price. So yes, absolutely. There's actually a really good there's a site, if anyone wants to compare models, then here's the site. It's really good. It has everything that you can, all the models and then all the visuals. Artificialanalysis.ai. So if you want to know like how cost and intelligence compare and what models are winning on this or that metric, jump onto that site. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and Gene's point about the lack of subsidization, that's so we've got that issue coming. We've got and then just the overall more awareness and backlash to data centers. And I mean, curious, like, this could be this could be a big X factor come this election cycle. And there's just way more of an outcry that you're seeing like across the board. I mean, it's a 62 square mile data center in Utah, but as these things get put onto public ballots, they are not popular.
No.
So,
and they're gonna get less popular. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some widespread backlash against this sort of stuff, because I don't know this for sure, but I always look at the maths behind this, and I kind of squinty eye the maths. I'm like, how does that work? How who's paying for that? And the future is always paying for it is the answer. And so in a year or two time, I mean, I guess if this is just related to any advice or for this session, if you haven't jumped into vibe coding, do it now, because all of this stuff will get pricier. And so in a year's time or in 2 years' time, people that just didn't start in 2 years' time will have to think a bit harder about what they use and how they use it. Because I just don't see it. I see someone paying for it, and obviously businesses will pay, but I think consumers are going to be charged a lot more than they charge now for the same.
And is that counterintuitive though? Because like we're so used to technology costs lowering over time, right? Like the MacBook that I have now for $1,200, like the amount of power this has compared to whatever like the 3-year-old model is, Yeah, like we're so used to getting more for the same or more for less. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like a very different arc than what, and that could be way more jarring for folks too,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, I guess so. I think that if it's more like a utility that powers all the industries, then I think it would take a while for that price to come down for the consumer. I don't see it being like, yeah, I don't know. I think the amount of debt that it's created that is owed to someone, I just think has to be paid back somewhere. And I think that the next 2 or 3 years pays that back a little bit.
I know that I'm willing to pay more for Cloud Code if it does real work. It's definitely worth more than what they're charging for right now.
Oh, 100%. Like I said earlier, like there's someone who's paid 10 grand for a web designer. If I'm willing to do it for zero and it costs me $5, then yeah, it's
Well, I had a quote on these 2 features that I just developed for 1,800. I did it for $100.
yeah. OpenAI has improved a lot. Actually, their latest models are taking a bit of a jump. Who said that?
Yeah, and I think for like a lot of freelance developers, like I mean, I think it's this fascinating push and pull where it's like on one hand there are lots of folks who can just go and take care of things themselves, and I mean I stopped having this Upwork guy on retainer to manage my own properties because like at first it was just because I wanted to manage the stuff more, and then I'm like, oh, I can actually like do so much more myself. But I also have him as a partner for like when I need to build stuff for clients and like stuff that needs to be really good. You know, and that there are so many folks now that like, yeah, even if you think of like the millions of mom and pop, you know, small businesses out there that can like do all right for a brochureware page themselves, but if they actually want to start like really going and standing out from the competition, and they want their proverbial flower shop to be like, yeah, more useful than like the others on the block, you get, you get someone who really knows what they're doing, and for relatively low investment can
That's it. Yeah.
Put that over the top. And like, so I think like there's just, and now the number of business owners and businesses out there that like might actually want to get into that development game, right? Yeah. Spend $1,000 less on Google AdWords and and just port that over to some freelance tech helps just gets
But I think the biggest barrier a lot of times when people start coding, they only think of the UI, but there's a lot more to building a software program than the UI, and having knowledge of an architecture of what it takes goes a long way.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And that's kind of coming back to knowing what you want, but also knowing what isn't acceptable, which is, you don't have to be a coding expert to know what isn't acceptable. Whereas if you want to know what to do in software engineering, you have to have, had, prior experience and things like that. But I totally agree. It's, yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Well, this is fun. I mean, Krish, it's great having you as part of this and sharing some of the things you're working on. Love geeking out on this stuff. So appreciate others contributing as well. And we will keep these going, and look forward to continuing to learn from all of you and just bouncing around more ideas. So.
I love the conversation. Thank you so much, David, for teeing this up.
We'll keep coming back and definitely share the things you're working on in the community.
Love that. I will do.